We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back with Mark Angelides and Joe Schaeffer on Liberty Nation Radio. We're continuing our talk on immigration, illegal immigration, or otherwise. Now, Joe, we've talked about the exploitative nature of illegal migrants being employed within the United States workforce. But there's also a societal detriment, I think, to, and a lot of people on the left would disagree with this, but there's a societal detriment to having a lot of illegal immigration within the cities, towns, and communities. And we do hear all the time, these people are part of our community, these people are part of our town, our district. And I don't think it's actually entirely true. And I quote none other than and this is off the top of my head, so please do forgive me if I get the year wrong, a 2007 article in the New York Times that actually looked at, is diversity a strength? And what they found was, and this was by a proponent of, one of the major proponents of diversity, and increased immigration. And what they found was that communities with more diversity were less trusting of each other, even if it was diversity among people who are from the same place as them, less trusting of each other. They volunteered less, they engaged civically less, and were generally less hopeful about life. Joe, your thoughts?
Well, that's a very philosophical question, and I think it's a very good philosophical question, but I'll give you my philosophical answer, and it ties back to what we were talking about with the so-called good employers on the industrial farms. And I believe this is all representative of an oligarchy. When people have learned a lot, Americans have learned a lot about oligarchy thanks to the Biden administration.
If I might just interrupt, a recent survey, I believe it was Napolitan News survey, that there's a vast swath of Americans don't actually know what the word oligarchy means. And I'm presuming they're the ones that are attending the Bernie and AOC oligarchy tours. Please carry on.
No, it's true, but I think that Joe Biden, really, they know the word at all. His administration illustrated it in such a way that Americans understand now. It is a bunch of elites who want a society that works best for them, and they do not care for the middle class. They see the middle class as an impediment. And what we are seeing is more elites, more wealthy people, and a lot more poor people, and nothing in between. And that is the historical recipe for violent revolution. That's how you get a French Revolution in 1789. That's how you get a Russian Revolution in 1917. But, temporarily, it works great for these people. So, let's go back to that philosophy of urbanism. Illegal aliens it works in several different ways. The big government that's in the cities, they need people to justify their budgets, to justify all that. So people have fled the cities because the jobs aren't there anymore. So they're importing illegal aliens for crazy, from half a world away into towns like Utica, New York, which were once great manufacturing towns, turned into ghost towns, and now are just filled with these illegal aliens. They're taking over the Catholic churches, the Protestant churches from the immigrants of over 100 years ago are now turning into mosques in Utica. And it's this profound change. It's not the America we knew, and it is divisive. There is division. But my theory is these entitled oligarchs, they want division. They don't want a homogeneity, a common united society, because that will question them, that will threaten them. The best form of citizen in a republic is a middle class landowner That's the best. That's the best kind of person who will defend a republic. The best kind of person for an urbanite consumerist democracy, which is their favorite word. It's not a mistake that they keep using that word democracy, is someone who owns no land, owns nothing, lives in a tiny apartment, barely gets by, has no real power, even though they're very emotional, get worked up about things, has no real power because there's no community, there's nothing tying them together, never really represents a threat to these people in the upper crust who just keep making money. So to me, it's the big industrial farmers, it's the big corporations, it's the progressive politicians. That's what I say when I use the term oligarchy. And illegal aliens, whether they're in business or big government or just leftist progressive radicals, they all love illegal aliens because it all furthers that purpose for them.
So I think it's really interesting what you say about middle class landowners, because let's be clear, it does work. It's in the shape of a pyramid, right? There are more less wealthy people at the bottom, more wealthier people at the top, and then there's this huge chunk in the middle, and that's about social mobility, right? And I think that's one of the key things of a successful society, is that you can move from the working class to the middle class, and as you say, become a landowner yourself, which is, it really gives you a stake in the game, right? In a way that even having children doesn't, because you can always take your children somewhere else, but once you have once you have land yourself, and you have that level of comfort that you're not constantly moving around, that's how you build community. It's a group of people who have decided to stay in one place, and they're tied to that land. And without that, you don't have. I mean, sure, you can say, and it's very much the identitarian politics aspect of it. You say, you're part of a group, you're part of this ethnic group, you're part of this sexuality group, you're part of this, that, or the other. Insert whatever adjective you want in there, but it's people caring about the area that they're in because they are wedded to that area, and that goes beyond race or sexuality or even in many cases religion. If you are tied to a piece of land and you have an interest in everybody else keeping their piece of land as beautiful as you want to keep yours, and that's what forms great community. But if you're just bringing in people who have no ties to the land, and they're consuming resources from that land and then can move somewhere else, I think that's the problem, right? You end up with a situation where nobody has a tie to the land. And as you say, they own nothing. I mean, this is, when you started saying that they own nothing, they rent.
Who does that?
Yeah, that's the WEF old idea, wasn't it? From about 3 or 4 years ago. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I don't know if that was a suggestion or a warning. But sorry, to wrap this back up again, Joe. So what's happening to the middle classes in America now?
Well, it's really what we've discussed. They're losing agency, they're losing power, their numbers are dwindling. You're seeing the numbers of have-nots growing, which means that you're going to see dissatisfaction growing. And, when they say that when the progressive left says that Trump is like the destroyer of, again, their word democracy, Trump is the sane solution to this problem. If we don't solve this problem, it's going to be a violent solution, with violence from left or right. Again, when you have a majority of people feeling that they are being oppressed by the system that they are living under, that system is not going to survive. So when you look at this, I just feel it strongly that they're trying to hold on to something that is not sustainable. And let's get back to the hiring illegal aliens as cheap labor is not sustainable for all the reasons we just discussed. It's going to destroy the middle class. It's going to lead to all this dissatisfaction. It's going to destroy community harmony. It's going to lead to more crime. All these things lead to a less stable system, which is going to topple the very people who are exploiting these illegal aliens in the temporary pursuit of as much money as possible. If these people had any vision, any foresight whatsoever, they would realize that, this is going to redound onto our heads at the end. And so this has to be solved. This problem, we can't keep kicking this down the road for another decade. And so, just deporting a bunch of MS-13 members is not going to solve this problem. If you're abusing workers like this, it's not going to be sustainable. It's going to topple, and you're going to be toppled. So, let's change this country harmoniously, or we're in trouble. It's going to be a lot worse.
Joe Schaeffer, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's all we have time for on this week's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I've been your host, Mark Angelides. I'd like to take a moment to thank our guests today, Andrew Moran and Joe Schaeffer. Thanks for taking the time to come in and join us here. And of course, I'd like to thank you, the listeners at home, who tune in each and every week to join us on this journey. Please remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse campaigns, candidates, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.